seconds of ground usage record at this time. So there's still a lot of top-level competition for sure. Does your clone do 1.1? I don't know. I think that the 1.1 days are behind me for now. Like, I'm really glad to be a part of this video, but I just think, mainly because of Luigi swaps, I don't have the capability of keeping up with the other runners nowadays unless I was to learn a different controller layout, and then the amount of time I'd have to invest learning a different controller layout specifically to compete in this category just doesn't seem worth it to me nowadays, because I still don't think, even with that, I'd be able to compete with some of the top runners without putting in unfathomable amount of time into practicing for this category still.
Their hitboxes overlap. You also damage boost.
I like 300% more. I will come back to 300% at some point.
Properly, you do enough damage to end phase 2 before it begins. Instead of
yeah, I do them all right. I'm just not nearly as consistent as everyone else. I'm probably like 50% consistently with Luigi swaps instead of like 95% like all the other top runners.
The fact that 1.1 runners were now allowed to do all this and more was very exciting. And it was enough to bring SBD Wolf back to running the category. He knew that Ribby and Croaks was going to be a huge reset point. It was just the second fight in the run, but getting the super skip required both good RNG and difficult.
By the way, this is like such a Wolf thing to do.
That whenever he missed it,
is to just pick an early game reset point, and then just reset if you don't hit that. Like so many other runners will just play out a run without getting like a time save in the beginning, but Wolf is just like
in Cuphead 1.1's history.
Wolf's like on a different level. He will grind to get a small time save at the beginning of any.
Super skip made the category frustrating to play, but a couple months later, he accidentally did. While practicing for a tournament, SBD Wolf set a new world record.
So it depends, Molarsis. I think it is a harder category, but I think it is a less competitive category. So I think that to get a competitive time in 1.1 is much more difficult than getting a competitive time in 300%. But in terms of like actually completing the category, from an objective perspective, I think 300% is a more difficult category. You're more likely to die in 300%. But I think the times are not quite as optimized. If that makes sense.
3050. This was the first world record to use new tech found by Luigi, called Luigi swaps. Similar to Calova swaps, they let you keep shooting during an EX on a flying.
Yeah, top 3 1.1.
Unlike Calova swaps, you must press EX and fire on the same frame. A month later, Calova took the record back with a 3047, followed a short while later by SBD Wolf reclaiming it with a 3045. And it was around this time that SBD Wolf began looking into implementing a new trick. Remember, allowing glitches in 1.1 was still a new thing, and runners were still trying to figure out which glitches from Legacy could be adapted to 1.1. And everyone knew there was a white whale. One glitch from Legacy that would be more valuable than any other. If they could find a way to make this one work without weapon swap glitch, it would be the biggest time.
It's weird seeing amazing players playing Legacy.
This is Beppy glitch.
Hey, it's the early days of the game, you know? A lot of the tech was not nearly as well established.
Just like Ribby and Croaks, it's possible to over-damage him and skip transition animations. In Phase 1, Beppy moves back and forth and then slides across to the other side of the screen and hits the wall, repeating this pattern over and over. Once you've damaged him enough, then the next time he slides across the screen, instead of turning around, he'll fall off the bottom. That's the trigger to begin Phase 2, and it's the perfect spot to over-damage him. Beppy doesn't transition to Phase 2 until after he slides across and falls off the screen. So you want to deal almost enough damage to trigger Phase 2, then the instant he slides and hits the wall, start shooting him and deal enough damage to pass the next phase trigger before he slides and falls off the screen. If done properly, Phase 2 never ends, and the game gets confused. Beppy's Phase 2 death sprite loads in, but the fight is actually in Phase 3 and his hitbox is active the entire time. He stays in this glitch state for the rest of the fight, so you end up skipping both the Phase 3 and Phase 4 transition animations. Now on the Legacy version, Beppy glitch was very doable. Thanks to weapon swap glitch, you could deal enough damage before the transition to Phase 2. But when 1.1 came out, that seemed to mark the end of Beppy glitch. Until SBD Wolf managed to hit it with a spread and P-shooter combo in June 2018. As soon as Beppy hit the wall on the right side of the screen, SBD Wolf unloaded everything he had into him, taking him out as he slid back to the left. It was also random. Beppy needed to avoid sliding for as long as possible to deal enough damage. But as hard as this all was, Beppy Glitch was officially possible on 1.1, and it was a 20-second time save if SPD Wolf could get it. He knew how huge this would be. With the current record at 30:45, a 20-second time save would leave runners just 25 seconds away from an enormous milestone, the sub-30. However, actually pulling this off in a run was going to be a big ask. On August 27th, SPD Wolf had a run that was a bit behind midway through, but with a 20-second time save potential on Beppy, he knew this was recoverable. No luck. Beppy slid too soon, so there was no time to deal enough damage.
The missing Beppy Glitch sigh. Everyone runner knows that feeling.
Fastest Grim matchstick he'd ever played in a run, and he closed it out.
Yeah, Noobzard. He messaged me on Discord back in like June, and mentioned that he was interested in making a Cuphead video.
So little, in fact.
So yeah, I'll pause to discuss this a little bit because I did mention it briefly before, but I'll go in a little more to detail. But yeah, he messaged me back in June, late June. For those of you that follow like somebody saw on Twitter, you may remember he made like a poll asking which of these videos would you be interested in me covering, or which of these topics would you be interested in me covering next. And I can't remember all the options that were there, but Cuphead was one of the options, and I believe Portal was one of the options as well. And I think Portal ended up winning the poll, having more views or more votes, but Cuphead was a close second. And then Summoning Salt was streaming Cuphead on Twitch shortly after that, giving it a try. And I remember watching him a bit and helping out a bit in chat. And then he messaged me on Discord like a few days after that, and then mentioned that, you know, he was considering making a Cuphead video and wanted to know the difference between the categories. So I kind of gave him... Well, I tried to be as objective as possible, just kind of detailing, like, the pros and cons of each category for 1.1 versus Legacy, saying, like, you know, Legacy's faster, it's more glitch-oriented. Maybe some bigger names running the category, like TMR and Distortion 2 were like running it back in the day. Hey, Jellybean, thanks for the new follow. And then 1.1 is kind of more, like, less glitch-focused and more, like, execution-focused. Not that execution's not, like, a big part of 1.0 as well, but it's just, like, different categories and different, like, strategies, you know? Like, 1.0, you mess up a glitch, you need to restart. 1.1, you mess up a glitch, but if your execution's good enough, it could be okay. You know, like missing Super Skip's not even necessary anymore. I feel like a lot of the bosses are less RNG reliant on 1.1 because you don't beat them fast enough for the RNG to matter as much as on Legacy. You know, because like in Legacy, you don't get middle pattern on B. You're losing like 6-7 seconds. In 1.1, you're getting a 2-cycle B regardless of the pattern, so it doesn't really matter as much there. Can't believe you kept this video secret from... I kept it a secret from everyone. I kept it a secret from my brothers, you know? My brothers who I usually tell, like, everything to. It was really hard. It was really hard to not mention this at all for months to anyone. So it's exciting that it's, you know, it finally came out now. I could finally talk about it.
That he kept his stream going, and a couple hours later, he had another run. This was a significantly better pace into Beppy, a huge opportunity to try and get the glitch. Once again, SPD Wolf set up Beppy's damage, unloaded at him at the right moment, and then...
Nope, that's not the pattern.
So he explained the category as well without it being too long. Yeah, I think he did a good job with it.
Not gained time, but he lost 7.
He mentioned Legacy without going too much into it.
It was a repeat of the last run.
You could make like a video about Legacy as well, but it would have to be like this video would have to be like 3 hours long if you wanted to cover Legacy also,
Alright.
or at least 2 hours long.
Very nice.
This was a pretty big one. The first ever sub 30-30. And more importantly, if he could hit Beppy Glitch, that alone was a 30-second time save over the split in this record. No other top-level players were actively playing. This was his milestone to reach. The next day, it was a familiar situation.
I like the like foreshadowing
No
here.
other top-level players were actively
Look at
playing.
the
This was
7th
his
place.
milestone to reach. The next day, it was a
Grandius
familiar
is just
situation.
creeping up on the bottom there.
SPD Wolf kept it close through aisle 1 with a chance to pull way ahead on Beppy, if he could get the glitch. This time, he got a good pattern,
Yeah, he
but
got the
messed
pattern
it
and
up
messed
by
it
getting
up.
something runners call a nothing. When doing a Calva swap, if you weapon swap on the exact frame the EX attack is supposed to come out, the EX attack gets cancelled and never comes out.
One thing I think Summoning Salt did really great with this video is that he staggered the it's not like an information overload explaining the speedrunning terminology. He finds like organic ways to explain things as the video goes on, so you're not just overwhelmed with info. And I think he does a very good job with that in all of his videos. Like, this is a very, very good opportunity for him to explain what a nothing is, instead of just explaining all the terminology up front and then just having the video. He like integrates it in a way where you're not overwhelmed. So, just props to Summoning Salt here. Does a great job of that. Same with like the boss strategy explanations too. He kind of explains the boss strategies throughout the video instead of explaining them all in a row at the beginning of the video. You know.
So, it was the same story again. No Beppy glitch, but he played well in the late game and pulled off yet another world record. So he was lowering the record, but this particular run felt about as good as it was going to get without Beppy glitch. He really needed it for sub 30, but it was just never happening. Maybe he needed a different approach. Part of the problem was Beppy needed to stay still for long enough to deal the damage. But it turns out, Beppy's delays here aren't fully random. They're only partially random. He has 10 possible delays, and they always occur in order, but the starting point in
this is such
random.
an SPD Wolf coded strategy. To like go into the coding, figure out how the RNG works, and then memorize it all so you can react to every pattern individually.
RNG sequence. So SPD Wolf realized
It's a really
he could apply
efficient
the
strategy. Like, it's a really good
Beppy
strategy.
glitch. If he could identify where Beppy was in his pattern after the first 2 delays, he could identify if the third delay would be long enough to do Beppy glitch. If it wasn't,
And like this is like the same concept that that Grandius took to like learning spider patterns for Devil later, which like it's crazy the amount of effort people go into just to have a chance at salvaging a pattern that would be slightly suboptimal. Like, a lot of people would just keep grinding until they got the pattern they wanted. But like the work that Grandius and SVU put in this category is more like, how can I optimize every single possible pattern so that I still have a chance even if I get that RNG, instead of just resetting until you get good RNG. Like, this is not like the effort that I put into this. Although I will say, for some categories, I did do that. Like for what was it? For Beppy glitch on 300%. I did learn all the 300%, all the expert mode Beppy glitch patterns, because it is worth it to get Beppy glitch in 300%. And with charge spread, it's not possible on all patterns. So that is something that I ended up taking a page out of their books to learn too, because it is such a smart idea. Instead of just hoping for good RNG, just learn how to handle the bad RNG a little bit better. You know.
he could wait 1 or 2 more cycles to do Beppy glitch, losing a bit of time but still saving time overall. This clever idea gave him a much bigger chance of hitting Beppy glitch in a run. And the very next day after discovering it, SPD Wolf did this.
I love like the montages. Like every Summoning Soul video has like so and so did this, and then there's just like kind of a montage with no commentary, just letting the gameplay speak for itself. It's like a simple formula, but it works every time. At least for me.
Very nice. Sub 30 has been achieved.
This was such a satisfying run for SPD Wolf. He hit Beppy glitch by recognizing his pattern. His hard work had paid off, and he was able to use it to get the first sub 30 in Cuphead history. Congratulations flooded in from the community.
There's me,
It was
yeah.
by far the biggest milestone in 1.1's history, and SPD Wolf was now in first place by a full minute.
Nice. I'm glad to hear you say that, Skittles, because it's hard for me to gauge how interesting the video is to people outside of the community, just because I'm so ingrained in the community at this point that I can't really see the perspective of someone that's not as ingrained in the community. And especially since I played a part in helping make this video, it makes me feel even closer to it, so it makes it even harder for me to be objective about it. But I'm glad to hear your perspective on that. I'd like to hear from people that have never had any experience with Cuphead at all, just to see how it compares to the other videos too, because I do really want to. I am very curious to how it appeals to completely an audience that's completely unfamiliar with it, you know. You know basically nothing about Cuphead, but this video had you enthralled. Nice, nice. That's what I like to hear. Home Slice Henry. Watch through the whole thing. Great. Yeah, a couple of the people from Pokemon Go I messaged about or told about or saw my tweet about it, ended up watching it and having pretty good feedback about the video. So I'm glad to hear that it's appealing to people even if you're not invested in the game. So I'm glad you guys liked it.
Given all the activity, it's
glad you liked it too.
Yeah, but at this point, Cuphead wasn't even a year old. And yet, version 1.1 had already seen 27 world records. Hardly a month ever passed without a new record, as runner after runner came along and got good. But now that the sub 30 was achieved, things finally slowed down. Compared to the previous 9 months, the fall of 2018 was a very quiet period for Cuphead speedruns. Through all of September, October, and November, no new world records were set. SBD Wolf's stranglehold on the leaderboard was too strong, and it stayed that way until something big happened in late 2018. To understand the next chapter in Cuphead's history, we have to look at the 7th place runner, a player named Grondius. Careful viewers may have seen it.
By the way, I like this. Summoning Salt does this twice in this video. I'm not going to spoil the second time. I'll pause it when it happens. But Summoning Salt 60 seconds ago, like referencing himself earlier in the video is like a pretty funny way to approach this. I'm chuckling because I think the editing's very nice here. Summoning Salt 60 seconds ago. Like you may have noticed this runner in this screenshot.
Name earlier in this video. Gron got into Cuphead speedruns in the spring of 2018.
So smug.
Just another person who played the game
I am
release, loved it, and decided to pursue speedrunning it. By that summer, he moved into the top 10. He was a good player, but not really a threat to the world record.
Ooh, that's a good question, right, Ted? The most satisfying moment of your Cuphead career? Ah, man. So, like, somewhat recently, earlier this year, I grinded for the DLC 100% record, which is held by a Japanese runner named Mina Mikori, and that run was incredibly stressful. I think it was more stressful than any other category I've ever grinded because there's no margin of error in it. If you take unintentional damage once on the run, you like the run is over. So that was incredibly stressful. So whenever I got record in that category, it was probably the biggest relief I've had grinding a Cuphead category ever. I don't know if I'd say it was the most satisfying, but it was definitely like the moment where I was like, oh, I'm so glad this is over with. I'm so glad I got this record. I'm done with this category. The most satisfying. It's tough because I want to say the 28-22 that I got that's featured in this video is probably the most satisfying because that's like I loved that run to the point where I made it that run was originally a no mic run, but I ended up liking that run so much that I recorded myself commentating over my own run to just give gameplay commentary because I felt so bad that it was a run where I didn't have in-game commentary with my camera on because it was like another one of those gaming sessions where, you know, my young kids were probably like in danger of waking up or crying or something like that, and I just didn't want to have that drama unfolding on stream. So probably that 28-22 because I don't think that there's many categories where I dubbed myself making commentary over my run after the fact. Like I did that with my DLC 100% video as well. So I think I did that one off stream. But I think the 28-22 for this category is probably the hitless run. I was going to mention the hitless run. That was another one where I was very relieved to finally have it done. I wouldn't say it's my favorite run. I was just glad I finally did it. Definitely not the most satisfying. But yeah, another one where, like the DLC 100% run, I was so relieved when it was finally over. Anyway, let's keep this going.
Even if his skills weren't there, Grond was a very creative runner, always looking.
Like I would say, like, even if his skills weren't there, which is probably true for the time, but like nowadays, I would say Grondius is by far the most skilled Cuphead runner of all time.
He wanted to throw out the current run and reroute the entire game with a new weapon combination, Lobber and Spread. This was an interesting duo. We already know that spread...
We would also just like give Grandius props for seeing what everyone's been doing for the last year, like the how people have been pushing the time down further and further, and for him to just have the audacity to just go, you know what? I think everybody's doing this wrong. I'm gonna go try to reroute the entire game with a different weapon combo, and just being right about it. It's like such a boss move to just decide like, yeah, you know what? I think every single person on the leaderboards right now is doing it wrong, and I'm gonna show them why it's wrong. That's basically, yeah, insane aura for sure, Henry. And then he ended up being like a lot of the optimizations found then. This is like 6 or 7 years ago at this point, are still in the current route. Like, it's crazy. Like the King Dice routing, which I don't remember. I don't think that the King Dice routing was figured out to be 357 right away, but it was found like pretty soon after the Lobber spread route was discovered, and then that's still like the optimal route used nowadays. Like Grandius figured out like so many things about the game and about so much like even if he didn't have necessarily the times down yet, he like knew this had to be the optimal way of doing things. I'm just not good enough yet, you know? It's crazy. You think Markin's just a tad more dominant than Gron? Yeah, you're probably true, right? At least for 1.3. Markin is like so good at all the 1.3 categories, which is kind of a shame that he doesn't really get a mention in this video other than having the thanks to, because he was included with the making of it. But yeah, he was never a 1.1 any percent runner, but he is so dominant in the other categories, which I totally agree with you there. The one with the cigar, yeah. 357 is the cigar, rabbit, Pureletta. Also, could Lobber spread be used in 300% instead of charge spread? I mean, it could, right, Ted? But 1.3 patched out the double damage from Lobber EX splash damage, so that makes it a little worse. And plus, the DLC bosses are way harder with Lobber spread. Like, they're way less consistent anyway. Like, charge spread and Lobber spread are actually pretty close in DLC any percent in terms of boss fights, but charge spread loses time because you have to get more coins to buy it. But in 300% where you're getting the coins anyway, you might as well use charge spread because the times are comparable, and I think charge spread is just better in the base game. So I think that charge spread is still the way to go. Lobber spread could also be used for sure in 300%. I would say a good enough runner could get world record in 300% currently with Lobber spread instead of charge spread because there's enough time save out there, but I think that charge spread is more optimal. Maybe not for a task. Task would hit the pixel perfect spot on all the bosses all the time and win the coin flip to get double damage, but I think in terms of practicality, charge spread is better for 300%.
A ton of damage, but with a very short range. Lobber also deals great damage, and was particularly intriguing because of its EX attack, which has an unintended mechanic: double damage Lobber EXs. A Lobber EX normally does 28 damage. However, if it hits the ground, the game accidentally creates splash damage twice.
For the record, Grandius did not even know about this tech whenever he started routing the game with Lobber spread.
Spot on some bosses where the Lobber
he just thought it was faster regardless. And the fact that there's this double damage, splash damage tech made it even more correct answer.
Times normal damage. However,
even without the double damage spread, the double damage Lobber EX tech, nowadays I would say this is still the optimal run of the pea shooter spread. Because I think like the Lobber spread runs for current patch are still faster than the pea shooter spread routes everywhere. So I think even without this tech existing, Grandius was still right about this route being better, which is kind of crazy.
If you do it correctly, this only works half the time. But this double damage mechanic, combined with spread, could be extremely powerful. The problem is that in order to purchase Lobber, you need more coins, and that means having to play a run and gun at the start, Forest Volleys, which takes an extra 50 seconds. So if Grond could manage to save at least 50 seconds with Lobber, then it would be worth it. Grond got to work. He found that doing Calava swaps with a Lobber EX and spread up close was a powerful combo. He had to figure out new routes for several fights all on his own, and the more he played, the more he was able to reap benefits from the Lobber. Grond told SBD Wolf what he was doing in November 2018. He was losing 50 seconds at the start of the run, but making up a chunk of that time across the remainder. Not worth it yet, but if he kept looking, he thought he could close the rest of the gap. And he kept finding new stuff. For Beppy Glitch, with the old weapon combo, you'd sometimes have to wait 4 or 5 cycles to get the right pattern, but with Lobber and Spread, you could always get the glitch in 3 cycles. He also refined the Baroness von Bonbon. This fight features 3 mini-bosses selected out of a pool of 5. There's 60 possible combinations. Grand relearned every option with Lobber and Spread, figuring out the optimal way to play every single scenario. So, he had the new weapons. He had the new strategies. It was still slower than the old route, but the gap was shrinking. He'd already made up 27 of the 50 seconds. Grand wasn't sure if he could take it the rest of the way, but he wanted to try. And over the next couple months, it started to get close.
I like this music that he has going on over this montage of clips too. I don't know what this clip is called, but I like it.
Yes, there is. Yes. Okay.
Also, I love watching Granius's post-run celebrations. I think that they're the best in the Cuphead community. It's like the perfect amount of emotion where it's not like too over the top. By the way, this is another screenshot that I'm in. That was my text above Gradius there. Even though my name was cut off. I'm in like all the Discord screenshots.
This was the culmination of an enormous effort in research and execution.
He loves seeing me in every Discord screenshot congratulating people. Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I feel like I'm also all over, like, maybe not as much in the Pokemon Go community, but I feel like I'm just all over the internet on like Twitter for Pokemon Go. And then I was also spending all this, like, how do I have enough hours in the day to be like constantly all over these gaming communities?
But maybe SBD Wolf could egg it on. In December, SBD Wolf started messing.
Yeah, exactly. Grindus is not blowing out the mic, but he is
like
yeah,
he found it to be the faster option.
He top tier.
He said a new person.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like my whole thing. I don't know what about me is wired this way, but I just have very few hobbies, and every single hobby I get into, I'm like, all right, I'll go put in a few thousand hours into this, and like then that's it. That's just all I do for years, and then I just don't get into anything else. That's just how I'm wired. I don't know why. But that's just who I am as a person. Like, okay, Pokemon Go, yeah, I guess I got a few thousand hours to spend playing this game and perfecting it. Oh, Cuphead, yeah, I'm gonna put 2,500 hours into this game. I will say I have the best return on investment probably out of any gamer in the world, because I put in $0 into Pokemon Go and gotten thousands of hours of play out of it and fun. And Cuphead was a $19.99 game that I've gotten like almost probably over 3,000 hours now. So like when you look at the hourly, like how much money I pay per hour to like play a game, it's like I'm basically getting paid to play these video games. It's like no money at all because I spend so little money on games. Like people will have habits where they'll go out there. Like I know people that are like, yeah, you know, I don't have any bad habits. I'm not like a drinker or anything. I'm not out there spending money frivolously on things. But, you know, I'll go out there. I'll treat myself. I'll buy like $200 worth of video games a month. And me, I'm like, oh, man, $200 worth of video games? It's like 10 years of video games for me. Because, like, I will play 4 video games for a decade. And then, like, that's fine. I'm cool with it. That's just who I am. I don't know. I don't know why. I feel like that's not a normal thing. But I don't know what sort of, like... I don't know. I don't know what you call that. Obsessive? I don't know. Whatever. It works for me, though. It works for me, and it's relatively cheap. Like, gaming as a hobby, for a lot of people, is an incredibly expensive hobby. For me, it is an incredibly cheap hobby. Yes. Okay. Okay. My one guilty pleasure is spending a bunch of money on Steam bundles, where it's a bunch of, like, really cheap indie games. Where it's like, okay, buy these 10 games, and it's like $20. And I'm like, $2 a game? You know? I can't say no to that. Yeah, Brent, my brother, he definitely moves to between games way quicker than me. Yeah, but yeah, the horror games, I can't help myself. Okay, I dabble, and it's October. Okay, I'm sure a lot of games are on sale on Steam now or going to be on sale in the near future. I will probably buy more horror games and stream more horror games in the near future. So you know that's the only thing that can really get me though.
29:45, then continued with attempts to get the world record back. SPD Wolf and
I really think you would like Clash Royale. No, I'm not going to get involved in that race. I just saw that message now. I've seen people that are involved in Clash Royale. It does not seem like something I would want to get invested into. And like people should say, people have told me like, oh, Jason, you should play World of Warcraft. Like, no, I've seen people that play World of Warcraft, and I know the type of person I am. I do not want to start another 5,000 plus hour hobby at this time. Like, I got out of RuneScape like fairly early on. I probably only spent like 1,000 hours in RuneScape, and I never looked back. Okay, I have to choose wisely. Do you put yourself in top 5 players of all time for Cuphead? Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. Like, I don't know what I'd put on the Mount Rushmore of Cuphead players. Gradius for sure, and Markin for sure, and probably SPD Wolf as well. And then I would say myself, and then maybe Sublime. Sublime for his like hater percent and Legacy 1.0 runs. But it's tough because like that 5th spot, I don't know, like you can make a case for like TMR as well, like Luigi in the early game dominance, Finton, who has like the Legacy record now. Like it's tough to say for sure. Yeah, Quinsley, like a lot of the newer gen runners, I don't follow nearly as much. Like I know Quinsley has a bunch of really good times, and like Mr. Butter and Gamer Attack. I mean, Gamer Attack's been, like, I can't even really call him like a newer gen. I like Clipboard guy as well. So there's like a lot of spots, but like in terms of just from my perspective, from whenever I was heavily involved in the community, I would say I'm the top 5. But if someone didn't want to include me in their top 5 list, I would totally understand that. Like I get it. I'm not as active on Cuphead nowadays.
Each other, and as they did, more runners began adopting the lobber and spread route. But it was SPD Wolf who closed in, and just after the new year, he came through with a new world record of 29:21.
Gortax has got the full clear record? Yeah, good for him. He's still grinding, still putting up really great
SPD
times.
Wolf saved big time on Hildeberg. This is a flying level in Isle 1. Hilda sways back and forth through the fight, and the idea is to use EX attacks when she's moving right so that she travels with it and takes more damage. When she charges forward, runners intentionally take damage so they can fire an EX attack that hits her over and over. In Grand's run, he accidentally took damage on a parryable, which meant he couldn't intentionally take damage later, and it threw the rest of the fight off. SPD Wolf capitalized on the time save. After this run, SPD Wolf looked to play other categories, and he also started focusing on Castlevania speedrunning, where he'd eventually claim the world record. So he moved on from playing any percent 1.1 speedruns. But Grand, on the other hand, was nowhere near done. The torch had been passed. SPD Wolf was way ahead, but now Grand had fully caught up. And just days after the 29:21, Grand took the record back with a 29:10.
We did it! All right, world record reclaimed.
The most notable split in this run was Baroness. He got Cupcake, Waffle, Candy Corn, one of the fastest patterns.
Such a good
much
pattern.
faster than SPD Wolf split, which got Jawbreaker, Cupcake, and Gumball. In general, Waffle is super fast, so you want that to be one of the 3. Suddenly, just 11 seconds from the next minute barrier, Grand pushed onward. He grinded off and on all through the month of January, while also searching for faster ways to defeat bosses. One thing he discovered was tech called flick lobbers. Instead of holding down the fire button to repeatedly shoot lobbers, you manually tap it so that you can face away from the enemy between shots. It's useful.
flick lobbers are so cool.
You need to repeatedly move
Such useful
away from
tech,
the
and like
boss, but still want to damage
so
them.
simple conceptually,
Now
but no one was
officially
doing
going
that for the
to
longest time.
29, on February 8th, Grand got one so close. It clocked in at 29 minutes flat. Just one.
I remember being in Gradius' stream whenever this happens.
Then a couple weeks later,
The 29
he had an up and down
flat.
He got a good.
It was such a
barrage
hype
on
moment, but also like
He got good RNG on Rumor Honey Bottoms, but lost time.
also
down
kind
the
of like a
stretch.
bittersweet run.
This type of run is so common in Cuphead. It's hard to get everything to line up. But then he golden king dice, saving another 4 seconds. Grand was freaking out.
Oh my god, dude, this might actually be it.
Just one fight left to go, the Devil. We haven't talked about him yet, but he is one last enormous roadblock, right at the very end of the run. For starters, he's extremely random, more than just about any other boss. In Phase 1, there's several attacks he can throw, including the clap and the parryable attack with bubbles. But through all this, there's one massive piece of RNG. At some point during the phase, it's very likely you'll either get the spider attack or the serpent attack. Both attacks have subsets of RNG within them, but in general, you really want to get the serpent, not the spider. The serpent either comes out from the left or right side with fairly straightforward RNG. The spider is unpredictable. It bounces a random number of times, randomly lands in different spots, and more. It's so hard to make a game plan. In general, the spider is at least a 6 to 7 second time loss over the serpent. It's 50-50 which one you'll get. So at the very end of the run, there's basically a coin flip as to whether or not you make it.
It's brutal.
And that's just phase 1. You then jump down a hole and there's a brief cutscene animation where Cuphead stares in awe before phase 2 begins. If you pause and unpause, then use an EX, you can shoot and move during this animation. The Geo buffer. So on this pace with sub 29 on the line, Grand had a lot to think about. The devil opened with some normal attacks, and then the moment of truth.
Hey, Gimme Arms, welcome in. I just enjoyed watching this video a lot. I'm impressed with your top level player multiple games, and your willingness to help in both. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I try my best to be a helpful member of the community. I know sometimes I can have kind of a polarizing personality on the Pokemon Go community on Twitter with some of my hot takes. Sometimes I have some unpopular opinions, but I think overall I like to try to help people. So I'm glad that you see it that way, and I feel like I am much more positive force in the Cuphead speedrunning community in terms of helping people. But probably up for debate for some people as well. But yeah, thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed the video.
Was this spider or serpent?
Oh my gosh. It's happening, guys. It's happening. Dude, I did it! Heck yeah, man!
This was another satisfying run for Braun. He got the goal he was looking for, broke another minute barrier, and now that SBD Wolf wasn't playing anymore, the next closest runner was a minute behind. With the sub
look at that runner.
achieved, Braun moved to play other games, and the community died down once again. These types of periods are normal in speed games. Sometimes there's a rush of activity and it seems like everyone is playing. Other times, everyone's on a break at the same time, and there's no real competition for the record. The latter was definitely true in the spring of 2019. Gron's 2853 was an amazing run, and now that glitches had been allowed for several months, it was less exciting and new. But in mid-April 2019, this period of inactivity came to an abrupt end. Because that's when the developers released yet another patch for Cuphead, version 1.2. Speedrunners were looking forward to this update, but were soon disappointed. Version 1.2 removed a lot of glitches. They patched out double damage lobber EXs, got rid of the ability to click through objects, and changed various hitboxes.
Disappointing.
16 months
But I did like.
when the game went
I did like
from 1.0
Windows.
to 1.1, it worked out well from a speedrunning perspective. Major glitches were patched, so runners were forced to come up with new tech. But 1.1 to 1.2 took it a bit too far. That cool tech was now removed, and it made fights last longer. It was a fine update for casual players, but speedrunners didn't know what to do. There was a big debate over how to deal with version 1.2. The end result was it became its own category, no major glitches, where in addition to the patched out tricks, stuff like Beppy glitch and Luigi swaps were also banned. So now, 1.0, 1.1, and 1.2 each had their own categories. And of the three, the one that developed the most momentum was 1.1, because in mid-2019, Jason 2890 came back to the category.
It's me.
Jason was a Cuphead legend. He'd held the 1.0 record in 2018 and recently set the 1.2 record as well. The only record he hadn't held was 1.1, where he currently sat in third place behind Grand and SBD Wolf. In fact, careful viewers...
Yeah, I like this. I like the callback to this Discord message. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the video, just him referencing Summoning Salt, the screenshot of Summoning Salt 60 seconds ago from the previous part of the video. That's nice. Can you rank all 5 main categories from easiest to hardest to get top 10 in? What are all 5 main categories? Are you counting like any percent Legacy and any percent 1.1, and then like DLC any percent, and then like no major glitches? Like, tell me which 5 categories that you like mean for the 5 main categories, because it's kind of nebulous based on how the boards kind of so DLC plus base game. Oh, okay. DLC no major glitches like single. Okay, yeah. DLC plus base game 80%. Hardest to get top 10 in. Wow, it doesn't hold all the records. What a noob. Truth. I would say hardest for sure is nowadays the 1.1 80%, and then probably Legacy is second hardest. Then maybe like DLC. But then I think no major glitches and DLC plus base game 80% are less frequently run, so I think those are a bit easier to get top 10 in. I have to look at the time specifically. DLC plus base game 80% is probably the easiest to get top 10 in out of those 5 main categories because I think it has the fewest number of runners. So I would say probably that by default. Good question though.
You might have noticed them earlier in this video. Cuphead runners are some of the most collaborative I've ever seen. Jason and Gron talked all the time and compared their fastest segments. And as a result, in late June, Jason took his PB straight from a 29.54 to a 29 flat.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
I just realized this now. Okay, very, very slight misspeak by somebody out there. He says I took my PB from a 29.54 to a 29 flat. It's actually a 29.56. Running my splits here, I think. Unless my splits are wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Straight from a 29.54 to a 29 flat.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Maybe I did have a 29.54 splits. I'm not actually sure.
He was actually on world record pace late, but he took a slower route on King Dice and made some mistakes.
Yeah.
So, Jason...
I went 3-4-8, I
He
think.
played all through that summer.
Because it was safer.
And in August, he took the 1.1 record for the first time ever with a 28.40.
Yeah. So I was mentioning this earlier. 8/13/2019. This is 6 days after my now 6-year-old was born. So that's why I was streaming with no cam for this. No cam, no mic. It was probably like the middle of the night too. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think I can't remember what time of day it was when I set this record, but that's why I was streaming with no cam, no mic. Because I had a 6-day-old baby that I was probably holding or was very close by while I played. Yeah, it is crazy.
At this point, Rondon...
By the way, I'll pause here in case anyone wants to read through these screenshots. I think it's interesting. You don't really get enough time during the video without pausing to read through it. But Grinding and I just talking back and forth about our times and what we can improve on. It was a lot of friendly competition. I think Ron is a really good friend of the community. So we had a lot of good memories looking back on this time frame in Cuphead speedrunning. And Grinding even nowadays will probably mention that the mid 2019 part of his Cuphead speedrunning career where we were like trading record back and forth is probably like the most fun part of the history of that category for him. And I agree, for me too. Oh wait, I accidentally read it. Hold on a second.
Organizations that they had found. Their focus was less. He took the 1.1 record for the first time ever with a 28.49. At this point, Rhonda and Jason were talking with each other constantly, sharing new strats.
Yeah, sorry to pause one more time, but whenever we were doing some research for this video, I looked through my messages, my DMs with Ron on Discord to go find, mentions of certain strategies to find out when things happened. And then, around this period of time, I think in 2019, I had thousands of messages between myself and Grandius. It was that much that we were just chatting about strats and Cuphead. Because it was all just Cuphead stuff, It wasn't just, we weren't chatting about TV shows or other hobbies. We were just talking about Cuphead and what times we're getting on bosses for thousands of messages. And it's just crazy. It's crazy the dedication that we both had to the category back then.
Pointing out optimizations that they had found. Their focus was less on who held the record and more on discovering as much as they possibly could to save time. They found small improvements on Cagney Carnation, Hilda Berg, Calamaria, and more. These two were on another level when it came to Cuphead, and as a result of their collaboration, they decimated the world record throughout 2019.
Yes! 28.44.
Yes.
By the way, you can't even tell, but this is the same room. Slightly different camera angle. This is the same room that is in the background of my video, but it looks so different because since that has been taken, we got this shelf. I'll show it really quick. This whole this whole like shelf behind me right now did not exist back then. We did not own that back then, so it's just like a blank wall behind me. It's kind of silly. But yeah, same room. You can't even tell.
Finally.
Hey, we did! 28, we still got it, dude! Hey, we did!
Shelf reveal.
Oh my god.
They just kept going. Every few weeks, one of them got a new improvement. There were a few new minor techniques, but most of this was just Jason and Grand pushing each other. Generally, these were very small improvements to the record, but this was nothing compared to the run that Jason got on November 13th, 2019.
Yeah, we did it back to back, yeah.
The run really started on Hildenberg, where he got an excellent 103. He then got a solid pattern with a waffle on Baroness, nailed Beppy Glitch, and got good luck with the clouds on Grim Matchstick. Jason had an unreal 17-second lead over his personal best.
Another no
was
run,
on
no
pace
mic
for
run, or like no
28
camera, no
1X,
run. So
and an
no
enormous
camera, no
world
run.
record. After a gold on Dr. Paul, Jason faltered a bit, but still maintained a 15-second lead with just one fight to go, the Devil. It was all going to come down to the grand decision, Serpent or Spider.
Too bad.
Despite getting Spider, Jason's lead was so massive that he still broke the record. It was just a 28-2x instead of a 28-1x. Grand and Jason both took note of this pace. In their minds, 28-1x would be the ultimate goal of Cuphead. And as friendly as their rivalry was, they did both want to reach it first.
True.
Jason said in the description of his 28-29 that he might take a break, but it really didn't last long.
The next day. When I said take a break, I mean I was going to step away from my computer and like get something to eat.
Comparing against a run that got the Spider, if he
Not
got
really,
the Serpent right
That's kind of
now,
how it was.
this could be 28-1x. Just terrible luck. Twice now, he was on 28-1x pace of the Devil, and he lost the 50-50 both times. A few weeks later in December, Jason finally got the Serpent, but it was after a very slow phase 1 where he took damage, missed shots, and bled a lot of time. A new world record, but not quite the 28-1x. Despite the lackluster end, Jason was very satisfied with this run. He was truly happy with how he played, outside of a brief moment.
It was a good run.
Even though he didn't have the arbitrary milestone of 28-1x, did it really matter?
Cuphead
This was
and
the
Smug
exact
Man.
type of run he was looking for. Jason decided to step back and leave it to Grand,
good.
who continued his grind for a few weeks. He used all the strategies that he and Jason
Good old
worked together
grindiest.
to develop over the
Getting
past
the
6
record.
months. And on January 17th, 2020, it paid off with the greatest world record in Cuphead history. Grand saved big time on Wally Warbles and never looked back. He got great RNG all the way through with very few mistakes. And at the end on the Devil, Grand managed to hold it together despite realizing the luck he was getting.
What is this? Dude, what the frick was that? Devil, dude! We got that! Oh my god!
I love that grindiest pop off. What the freak was that? Devil, dude.
There it was. Cuphead's ultimate world record.
I like it.
Over the past year, Jason and Grand had pushed each other so much that they'd run away with the category. They were a full minute ahead of anybody else. These guys were able to get times on fights that nobody else could even come close to. And the end result was this record, a 28-13 that Grand officially set, but was ultimately deserved by both runners. What they did through the second half of 2019 was remarkable, but it wasn't to last. Because after this 28-13, both runners were done. They'd had their fun and were ready to turn it over to somebody else. But was there anybody else waiting?
It is crazy how many years the Grandius is 28-13.
Sort of been the secondary category, while 1.0
stayed
was
on top.
considered the main speedrun of Cuphead. However, that gradually changed as more and more runners wanted to play 1.1. It was a perfect balance between having lots of tech while not being completely broken. Throughout 2021 and 2022, 1.1 exploded in popularity and eventually overtook 1.0 as the main category on speedrun.com. Now, lots of speedruns had popularity
Yeah, it'll
for
probably never be
certain time
times.
as people suddenly had a lot
Until.
more time on their hands. But Cuphead 1.1 is an extreme example. In just a couple years, it went from 87 runners to over 300. This could be due to popular games done
I was
quickly,
running dominating 1.1.
tutorials that Ron made, or the
Agreed.
fact that the game just remained culturally relevant. The game also came out on other platforms that didn't allow down patching, which made it harder to play 1.0. But whatever the cause, the end result was undeniable. By 2022, 1.1 was the premier category of Cuphead, which was now a very popular speed game. And yet, despite this, Gron's 2813 still remained on top more than 30 months after it was set. There were more than 200 new runners, but nobody could beat either Grand or Jason, still holding down the number 1 and number 2 spots in late 2022.
The longevity is pretty
It is a
insane.
testament to what these guys accomplished back in 2019. Their run stood the test of time. This gap in the record timeline was pretty unexpected given the frequency of records in Cuphead's early days. But still, there were a lot of active contenders, improving their skills and residing not far behind on the leaderboard. If one of them could just get that small amount better, they could separate from the pack and make a run at the world record.
Maybe I Cuphead for your Switch too. Can't imagine you going through it very quickly.
But on August
It's a great game. It's well worth it, and it's not that expensive. You know, it's
16 to the leaderboard.
indie game.
One simple line
20
in the
bucks.
description. I'm coming for you, Grandius.
I like this introduction.
This
It's a clipboard guy.
is Clipboard Guy.
That is pretty cool.
Clipboard Guy started.
I'm coming for you,
running
God. He's
games
like calling out the
shortly
world
after
record holder
was set
in the comments for
January
your
2020.
second place run.
He actually learned from the
It's nice.
tutorials that Grand made. Like